Good afternoon, everybody. This is Bonnie Vandermeulen, Training Coordinator for Wisconsin Facets. On behalf of our entire Wisconsin Facets staff, I'd like to thank you for joining us today. Today's webinar is entitled, Is Your Child a Target of Bullying? Intervention Strategies for Parents of Children with Disabilities. I will be your presenter today. Oops, excuse me. Let's see what's happening here. Many parents have directly experienced that a child with a disability often faces obstacles in assessing educational opportunities. Bullying can intensify those challenges. Bullies tend to target children who are considered different. It may be their appearance, the way they communicate, or the manner in which they behave. The fear of being bullied at school can greatly diminish a child's ability to learn. Without intervention, children with disabilities who are the target of bullying may be deprived of their legal right to a free, appropriate public education. They are also at risk of short and long-term effects such as school avoidance, low self-esteem, increased fear of anxiety, depression, lower grades, and even increased violence in school. Bullying is a serious issue and affects nearly every school in our nation. It is a behavior that knows no boundaries of class, race, gender, size of school, or even age. And let me try to see if I can reduce this panel so this is not in the way for you. So let's look a little bit about overcoming bullying. And just reviewing what we just said in the first slide that I shared with you, there are these particular issues that are both a risk of short-term and long-term effects. Again, to review, school avoidance, low self-esteem, increased fear of anxiety, depression, lower grades, and even that increased violence. Let's take for a minute to define what bullying actually is. The U.S. Department of Education defines bullying as intentional, repeated hurtful acts, words, or other behavior such as name-calling, threatening, and or shunning committed by one or more children against the other. In order to develop intervention strategies, bullying behavior first needs to be defined. Parents need to be able to know exactly what bullying is and identify it when they see it. There are several different commonalities as it relates to bullying. One is, of course, the intentional behavior toward the target. The target does not knowingly provoke the bully, and the target may have made it clear that he or she resents the behavior. Bullying is often repetitive in nature. These actions are generally carried out and repeated over time, but could also be just a single incident. Bullying can also be defined by using hurtful acts, words, or other behavior. An oppressive or negative act carried out against another with the intent to harm or to hurt. Bullying may be committed by one or more persons against another. Bullying can be the act of a single person or it can be done by groups of persons. Also, bullying can present a real or perceived imbalance of power. A child without power cannot bully. Power can be defined as either physical strength, social status, or a higher sense of self-esteem. So let's define bullying further and talk a little bit about what harassment means. When harassing conduct is sufficiently severe, persistent, or pervasive so that it creates a hostile environment, It can violate a student's rights under Section 504 and Title II. The agencies conclude that a hostile environment may exist even if there are no tangible effects on the student where the harassment is serious enough to adversely affect the student's ability to participate or to benefit from educational programming. And on your slide here is the short definition of disability harassment as it appeared in a letter from the U.S. Department of Education way back in the year 2000. So let's take a look for a moment at common views about bullying. And several of those common views are listed on your slides. The first one, boys will be boys. And I'm sure that over the course of the years, many people have heard that, and oftentimes bullying is assigned more to boys than to girls. But the implication is that bullying is okay, that it is natural for boys to be physically or verbally abusive. However, research indicates that aggression is a learned behavior, not a natural response. And then moving on to the next statement on girls don't bully, research shows that girls can and do bully. While they do not physically target as boys do, although in the present years we've seen more and more of that. They also find that many girls would prefer to use verbal or social bullying. And I'm sure that we've all heard about what cyberbullying is. And since we're on the age of technology, we have seen and heard of a great deal of cyberbullying. Words will never hurt you. Studies have shown that even though words don't leave bruises or broken bones, they may leave a deep emotional scar that can have lifelong implications. Children learn at a very early age that words can hurt other children. Another misconception is that bullying is a natural part of childhood. There is nothing natural about being bullied. Bullying is often considered a normal part of childhood because it is such a common experience. Physical or emotional aggression toward others should not be tolerated as a consequence of childhood. You've also maybe heard the statement from others where they say, well, some people deserve to be bullied. No child's behavior merits being hurt or harmed in any way, shape, or form. Another misconception is that bullying may make kids tougher. Bullying does not make someone tougher. Research has shown that it often has the opposite effect. Lowering a child's self-esteem and self-worth is a direct result from bullying. Bullying often creates fear and increases anxiety in children. Telling a teacher about bullying is tattling. This is a large misconception. Children need to know the difference between tattling and telling. The secrecy of bullying only serves to protect the person who is the bully and to perpetuate that particular behavior. And then, of course, the last statement on your slide says, it was only teasing. Most children are occasionally teased. Teasing in which the parties are not hurt is not considered bullying. Teasing is bullying when a child with a disability does not understand they are being teased and the intent of this action is to hurt them or to harm them. So let's look at children who actually bully. Traditionally, children who bully are perceived as someone large in stature. In reality, a bully is defined by his or her behaviors. Bullies can be any size, any race, any religion, any gender. They can be popular or they can be rejected by in-groups or social circles. There are many reasons why children bully. The most predominant is that the child has an inability to manage his or her anger or frustration in an appropriate manner. Children who bully seek to demonstrate power. They can be aggressive, physically stronger, remorselessness they can show. The intent in wanting to hurt and harm others is also displayed. They may thrive on control and dominance and often cannot distinguish between fear and then respect. Children who bully frequently have a false sense of self-worth. They might have a large circle of friends, and this social status is something reached by forcing children to befriend them when specifically they're doing this out of fear. The quote, friends of the bully fear becoming targets themselves. So let's talk for a minute about what research shows us in this area. Bullying can begin as early as preschool, increasing in elementary school, peaking in middle school, and then sometimes decreasing in high school. In elementary school, it is found that boys are more involved than girls in bullying. This gender difference decreases in middle and high school as social bullying among girls increases. Boys generally bully other boys and girls, while girls usually bully other girls. Bullying behavior in elementary school is more likely to include things like physical aggression, while middle school and high school bullying is characterized more by teasing and social exclusion. Boys tend to use physical means to bully, while girls use teasing and, again, social exclusion. So here we're going to talk for a moment about children who are targets of bullying. The words we use to describe bullying are very important and powerful. Children who are bullied are often referred to as victims. This term implies that the child is powerless to change his or her situation, or that he or she is somehow responsible for the actions of someone else. However, children who are bullied are really targets, and they do not have power to change what is actually happening to them. No matter what term is used, a victim or a target is not responsible for the action of the bully against him or her. However, using the term target may change the thinking to I was hurt. The bully made target practice out of me, but I have choices and I have options. I can take back some of that power that the bully thinks that he or she has over me. By using the word target, a witness can see that the child is being picked on intentionally. Someone can make a decision to hurt him, and I will make plans to keep it from happening again. Children with disabilities who are targeted can learn strategies to help them take back the power from the bullies. They may learn a different way to respond or to react. They may learn to ignore or to give a witty response. We will talk more about some of these strategies a little later. The following are common characteristics of children who are targeted by bullies. Children who display vulnerable behaviors, who have few or no close friends or peers that are often socially isolated, who are also less assertive than other children, and who display lower self-esteem and a lack of self-confidence. So there are several different kinds of bullying, and the first one that we want to address here is physical bullying. And on your slide, it lists for you specific ideas of what types of physical bullying are. Sometimes physical bullying can be the easiest type of bullying to recognize, as it is the most visible. However, because the majority of physical bullying occurs outside the view of adults, sometimes it's difficult to detect. Physical bullying includes things like kicking, hitting, pushing, taking or damaging property, and also forced or unwelcomed contact. It also includes the perceived intent to harm, which can include instances of pretending to physically harm the target, like flicking one's fingers in someone's face or trying to put their fingers close to their eyes so that someone might flinch. It could also include such things as spitting, pulling someone's hair, throwing objects. Physical bullying episodes can be brief in duration, but they can have consequences that extend far beyond the immediate hurt or harm because the target may feel unsafe at school. Physical bullying can begin in children as young as 4 or 5 years old. This behavior is not considered bullying until the child realizes his or her actions cause another's pain. Physical behavior is often perpetuated by boys against boys, but girls can also be subjects of biting, hitting, kicking on the playground, in school, or on their way home from school. So let's move on then from the physical type of bullying to one that we know as verbal bullying. Verbal bullying is the most common type and the easiest type of bullying to inflict on other children. It is quick, it is easy, it includes things like teasing, name calling, threats against the target, intimidation, demeaning jokes about others' differences, spreading rumors, gossip, slander. With respect to teasing, it is important to distinguish the difference between good-natured fun and bullying. For example, a target of playful teasing reacts with a smile or with a laugh, and both parties are building social contact and awareness. The parties are engaged in mutual interaction and have equal power. The target of hurtful teasing, otherwise bullying, can hurt. The person can become angry, or the person can become sad. The difference between teasing and bullying is in the intent of the child initiating the behavior and the reaction of the target. While some teasing may appear good-natured, it may be hurtful and hurting that particular child. The child initiating the action may be familiar with the methods that push someone else's buttons. So let's talk about emotional bullying. Emotional or social bullying is the most sophisticated of all bullying, as it generally is very deliberate and is often done in groups. It can be the most difficult type of bullying for children to define as bullying itself, because they may often feel as if they, the person who is the target, did something to deserve it, or they do not understand why it is happening to them at all. And this is a very common thing that happens specifically to children with disabilities. Certain types of social bullying include such things as alienation or exclusion from groups, manipulation done to prevent acceptance into groups, damage to a person's reputation, public humiliation, creating a sense of uneasiness for that target, in other words, making that person feel vulnerable and unsafe. And then something else that we call flaming, or posting slander, for example, on the internet. That would be an example. Emotional abuse peaks in middle school as children are learning about social norms and standards and finding out where one fits into the social hierarchy. This behavior becomes bullying when the intent is to cause another's pain and to assert social dominance. Moving on to the next type of bullying we know as sexual bullying. Understandably, this may be the most difficult of bullying for a child to discuss and also be difficult for a parent to hear. Listed on your slide are several examples of sexual bullying: making charged sexual comments, inappropriate or lewd glances, exhibitionism, sexual assault, inappropriate physical contact. Children need to be provided with the appropriate social rules and norms for dating and flirting so that they can act with respect toward their peers and recognize when someone is not respecting them sexually. Children need to know acceptable boundaries. And here's an example. Is it okay to touch a girl's shoulder when you're talking to her? Is it appropriate behavior in social relationships? Is it okay to talk with an older boy, for example? These are behaviors oftentimes that parents of children with disabilities have to discuss with them. So if we want to prevent some of the bullying from happening, there are things that we have to do to plan ahead. Your child may not be the target of bullying right now, but may be in the future. In the future, their potential for becoming a target may increase. It is important to recognize a child's potential as a target and develop a plan to provide a child who has disabilities with the skills and the strategies to avoid this bullying behavior. We need to be able to start when the child is young. We need to teach advocacy skills, and especially those self-advocacy skills that the child can be able to utilize to tell someone when they're being bullied. We need to help them to understand their disability. We need to encourage children to develop in all areas of social relations, and we need to help them to develop support systems. Many of our children with disabilities are lacking the support systems that they need. Their families oftentimes serve as their supports, but we need to be able to develop things like a circle of friends for them. And this is something that a parent can work with a particular teacher, their child's teacher, with, in order to develop groups of individuals who will help support and serve as a support system for children with disabilities in their classrooms. When might a child be a target of bullying? And I suppose before we move on to that, I'd like to talk for just a second before we move on about how we go about talking to our kids about bullying and how we prepare in advance to do that. I think parents need to practice their listening skills. It might be emotional for a parent to do so, but I think that when a child has something to say and they really want to say it, we have to try to be able to listen and not necessarily just to solve their problem. We need to believe that the knowledge that the child is being bullied can be shocking, but to that effect, an advocate who is a parent needs to react in a way that encourages the child's trust. As parents, we need to be supportive. We need to be patient because children may not be ready to open up right away, and that talking about bullying may be difficult as there is a fear of retaliation from that bullying, and the child might feel insecure, withdrawn, frightened, or even ashamed. Parents should educate their child about bullying by providing them the information they need to stand up to the bully. They need to know a process not only to stand up to that bully, but also to tell somebody that this is happening. And we need to be able to explore those options for intervention strategies that parents need to discuss with their children directly. Many children will be able to easily identify the behavior of another as bullying, but for those children with disabilities, it may be difficult for them to determine or understand that they themselves are the target of bullies. And this is just a review of some of the things that I just discussed with you as you talk with your child about bullying. Again, listen. Believe what they tell you, be as supportive as you can, be patient, try to reserve your judgment for as long as possible, provide as much information as you can for your child, and then go to explore the strategies that will help them to be better. There are some questions that you can use to be able to address some of these particular behaviors that you can ask your child. Did the child hurt you on purpose? Was it done more than once? Did it make you feel bad or angry? Did the child know you were being hurt? Is the other child more powerful than you in some way? What's your impression of that? There are variations of these questions for the child who is reluctant to talk about the situation or maybe does not have the words to be able to express those things. You could start by saying things like, how was your bus ride today? Who did you sit with at lunch? I noticed that you seem to be feeling a bit sick, a lot more than usual, and you want to stay home. Is there something going on that we need to talk about? Are kids making fun of you? Are there lots of cliques in school? Has anyone touched you in a way that's made you feel uncomfortable? And also, there are other options for helping kids discuss bullying that include such things as discussing bullying incidents on TV or in a movie, reading books and stories about bullying situations, and even talking about specific events that we see on the news. Parents need to be able to recognize their own reactions to bullies and to the whole situation, and they need to be careful in the way they do it because they will also experience a wide range of emotions, and we need to recognize what some of those emotions are and then decide what some of the appropriate strategies are that we need to utilize. Our next slide talks about some of those appropriate strategies. Intervention strategies for a child who is the target of bullying are dependent on not giving the bully the desired response of causing hurt or harm, both physically and mentally. Strategies that involve direct reaction between the bully and the child should, whenever possible, be avoided in situations in which the bully is very intense, relentless, or the child feels physically threatened. In talking with a child about options for reacting to bullying, parents need to decide if the intervention is appropriate for the situation, the age of the child's ability and comfort level. Does the child have the skills and the ability to carry out this particular strategy? And the fourth thing that's on your slide, the supports that are available for that child. Does the child have a formal, like school personnel, or informal peers or friends that can help with that strategy? When a child is the target of bullying behavior, he or she needs to have methods to react to the bullying situation. The reactions fall into two categories, direct and indirect, which will be addressed on our following slides. So here is some idea of what we consider to be indirect reactions to bullying. These are strategies that are not directly responding to the bully himself. The child may ultimately avoid the situation or not provide the bully with opportunity to initiate or continue the behavior. The first thing on your slide talks about disregarding the bully. Try not to give the bully an emotional response. Try not to cry, which is oftentimes very difficult. Become angry or act scared. Let the child know that teasing, bullying cannot be prevented and that children cannot control what others say. However, they can learn to control their own reactions. And they can do that by the next thing on the list in the slide, and that's using self-talk. Practice with a child methods to think through the situation. Instill the importance of acknowledging that just because someone says those words to you or unfairly does something to you, that still you have a choice. They do not have the right to hurt me. I have the right to tell someone else what's going on or to tell them to leave me alone. Practice things like role playing and problem solving. Work with the child to develop established responses to situations and practice the response until the child is easily able to do it on his or her own. Instruct the child to move away from the situation if they can. As soon as the child recognizes the potential for bullying, he or she should move away from that situation as best as they can and help the child have a safe place to go. Stay away from areas or situations where bullying occurs. When a child knows that bullying occurs in a certain place, like in an area of the playground, in a deserted hallway, they should plan to try the best they can to avoid those places and should always stay in the view of an adult. They should stay with another child, a friend, a peer, or a sibling. They should also learn a plan for how to talk to an adult about the situation. So here are some reactions to bullying that we would consider to be direct in nature. Direct reactions are strategies when the child or the target chooses to directly respond to the bullying situation to ultimately stop the immediate bullying and to prevent it from happening again. The goal is to take away the bully's power to harm. Here are some of those examples on your slide. To educate the bully, to provide the bully with information, to tell the bully a brief statement about your disability or differences, to let them know that I have difficulty in a specific area, and even maybe to enlist their help in helping you. Tell the bully they are absolutely correct, that you agree with everything that they say. For example, when a child with a limp is teased, they can say something of, yes, I do walk with a limp. You're right, and you didn't notice it, but I'm able to do lots of things. And in fact, I could even learn to be your friend. Seek the help of an adult. Locate the nearest adult. Try to get their attention and let that adult know that you need assistance. Do something that the bully would not anticipate. Yell out to another child or to an adult. Or if you have a whistle, for example, carry a whistle in your pocket, use the whistle and blow it as loud as you can. Or flat out in a direct way, just ask the bully to please stop or to knock it off. Generally, it's not a good idea to respond physically or fight back, as this only perpetuates the behavior and can lead to other issues such as suspension and increased physical violence. Calling the parent of the bully should be discouraged. The better recourse is to work with school administrators to adjust the issue and the consequences for the bullying behavior and to encourage school-wide awareness that bullying will not be tolerated. Now, we have in all our schools bullying and harassment policies. We are required by the Department of Public Instruction to have a school have such policies. It would be a big suggestion for all of you to have access to that information, whether it's in your child's code of conduct that you have, the rules and regulations or handbook that they provide you with from the school, or specifically ask the administration for their bullying policy and their harassment policy. You should encourage group involvement as best as you can. Studies show that children who interact with their peers are less likely to be bullied. Children who are familiar with one another on a personal basis are more likely to provide support, empathy, and protection from one another. Here are some examples of adult-monitored activities to help a child increase peer interaction and to make them feel more comfortable. Enroll in some types of structured activities, such as non-competitive sports, if there's swimming or dance classes, maybe some scouting opportunities. Join an after-school program or an activity, such as things that may be involving arts and crafts, or even things that are like karate, or some after-school games and activities. Participate on committees for different types of things. For example, an older child might want to work on the newspaper or the homecoming committee, or even serve as manager for different athletic types of teams. Help them to develop a hobby that allows direct interaction with peers, such as dance or even theater. It is important for parents to also educate their children about social norms. Children who understand social norms are less likely to be socially isolated and are better equipped to respond in a manner that does not provide the bully with that desired effect that they are looking for. It is my belief that there comes a time when professional help is definitely necessary, and that sometimes parents should seek professional help for their children in the area of standing up to bullies. Professionals may offer support, advice, information to assist parents in determining the best intervention to stop the child from being a target of bullying. And let's move on. And we talked about programs for people to be involved in, and also that parents can help. Parents can take an active role in their child's school. They can let teachers and students know who you are and that you're interested in your child's safety and in their well-being. Parents can advocate for school-wide programs to promote bullying awareness, which could include such things as school-wide assemblies to introduce and discuss bullying issues, and many schools have initiated those programs now. To provide things like disability awareness, and even though these may happen on isolated cases, I believe strongly in the fact that we are in need of more disability awareness programs to create an atmosphere in school that is more accepting of individuals who have differences. We want to encourage peer interaction as much as we possibly can, and we want to provide areas which we would call safe zones, areas that are heavily monitored by adults, trained how to recognize different types of behavior that's a behavior of a bully, and we want to be able to provide a safe and effective intervention. We want to develop conflict resolution programs. We have many peer-on-peer programs where there are peers that help out other peers to solve their disagreements without bullying or conflict. And we want to possibly even develop what we would call a class contract. And we would work with students to establish their own set of rules about how to behave in the classroom and on the playground and in the hallway. And this contract could also include the consequences if those rules were not followed. We want parents to make some connections with other adults, with other parents, with other educators who are influential and positive role models, so our children can look to them for extra help if necessary. We want to be part of that change in the school. We want to be able to look to see what research is telling us, and indicates that by creating a supportive school climate, it is the most important step that we can use to be able to prevent harassment in general. So let's talk specifically about a child that has an IEP. Children with disabilities who are eligible for special education under the Individuals with Disability Education Act will have an individual education program. The IEP team can work together to develop goals, benchmarks, or short-term objectives that identify things like supplementary aids and services or program modifications to support or to help prevent and intervene with bullying. There are some examples of goals and objectives that may address some of those following and may be included in children's IEPs. For example, you might be able to write into the goals and objectives to improve social skills such as sharing, taking turns, thinking before acting, develop the ability to carry on a two-way conversation, increase self-advocacy skills so that a child can say no or stop that, to improve speech so that the child can interact better with their peers, and to identify and practice direct and indirect ways to react and to handle to avoid bullying. Your child's school counselor or social worker may be able to help with these types of things. As my daughter was growing up years and years ago, we put together a self-advocacy plan and a method by which she could address some of the issues that were necessary for her to build her self-confidence so that she was able to interact socially with others. Also, as part of the supplementary aids and services, program modifications or supports, you want to be able to allow the child to leave class early if there are problems in the hallway so that they can do a pass in the hallway without the problems that happen sometimes in the hallway. We want to educate peers about the school policies on bullying. We want to make children aware of the fact that bullying and harassment are against school policies and even against the law. We want to provide in-services for school staff to understand children's disabilities and their vulnerabilities. And we want to educate as many people as we can about the school district policies on bullying behavior. There are federal laws that apply to disability harassment particularly, and they're listed there on your slide for you. Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973 specifically lays out disability harassment, as well as the Americans with Disabilities Act, the ADA, and IDEA, the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. Much of this information can be found in what we consider to be called a Dear Colleague letter from the Department of Special Education Programs from the Department of Education, and you can find those. There are also specific state laws that help prevent disability and harassment, and those are specific state guidelines that you can find under our state law, and you can look at those at the DPI website, and they will talk about such things as disability harassment, may deny a free appropriate public education for kids that are being bullied, and these would be direct violations of Section 504, ADA, and IDEA. So you can take a look at our Wisconsin DPI website to find more information in that area. And let's talk for a minute about what I mentioned just before, a free appropriate public education. States and school districts have a responsibility under Section 504, which is Title II of the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, to ensure that a free appropriate public education, or what we know as FAPE, is made available to eligible students with disabilities. This means that a child who has disabilities should and must be educated in the best way they can be with as many of their peers as they possibly could be, in a way that they can access that education and not be denied that education. Bullying and harassment can interfere directly with the free appropriate public education. So we want to be able to respond to disability harassment, and what is the role of the school policy in that respect. And I think that I had talked a bit about that as we opened and said that there are specific rules and regulations that each school district has as to what their harassment policies are. When a child is at school, his or her safety is the responsibility of school personnel. School districts have a legal responsibility to respond to disability harassment allegations. The first step for school districts to develop and to disseminate an official policy against this discrimination and based on disability harassment. The school district should widely publicize this anti-harassment statement and procedures for handling discrimination claims by including an anti-discrimination statement in its student handbook. The anti-discrimination student should identify the person to whom complaints of disability discrimination should be addressed to, their business address, and their telephone number. Any synopsis of the grievance procedure should include directions on how and where to obtain a copy of the complete grievance procedure. The school district also has the responsibility to respond to disability harassment if and when it does occur by taking effective action to properly end this harassment, to prevent it from reoccurring, and where appropriate, addressing the effects on the student who has been harassed. And this is just a reiteration specifically of the school district's policy and what they need to do to be sensitive to the disability harassment. So moving on, one of the things that's strongly suggested and that I tell parents to do all the time is to keep a record. And I believe I provided you with a handout on how to keep a record of some of the bullying and the harassment-based problems that a child may have. I think that anytime you find that there is bullying, that you should record it, put it in writing, and have it available so that you can fill out your disability harassment complaints from evidence-based situations. When a child is a target of bullying, parents need to document the events and develop a record of what is happening to this child. The record is useful when talking with school educators, law enforcement personnel, and other individuals who may need to assist parents in intervening with bullying. Parents, as the most invested parties, should do their best to keep track of the events. In this way, emotions alone don't drive the discussion. Records can help parents keep concise, accurate timelines of events. The record can also help in determining if the bullying behavior has increased or decreased in frequency or duration. The record should be factual, based on actual facts. Do not add opinions or emotional statements. Data is what's important. Remember, if it is not in writing, it does not exist. The content should include written information about the bullying incidents, the date of the event, the persons involved, and the child's account of the event. Also include all communication with professionals such as teachers and administrators, the date of the communication, the discussion or a summary of the event, the responses of the professional, the actions taken, and the report filed by the school in accordance with the school district policy. Other methods of recording events may include taking pictures to have evidence of healthcare records that indicate that there was bullying done, or a tape recording of the child talking about the specific bullying that happened. Then we have a procedure in which we can notify school administrators of those harassment complaints. And I believe I also put this as a handout for you to take a look at. And let's talk about those 10 steps for notifying administrators. The first one, of course, as we mentioned before, is in writing, address the notification of a specific person and the date that letter. Write the letter to a person who has the authority to investigate and the authority to correct the wrong. Note what the school district is a recipient of federal financial assistance. And let me just talk about that for just a second. If a school receives, and they do, any federal financial assistance, If they're proved not to be able to provide a free, appropriate public education for a child who is being bullied, their federal financial assistance could be in jeopardy. State the past or continuing discrimination policies. Explain that the discrimination was not a single act, but was severe and pervasive if it was. Tell how the discrimination excluded your child from continuing their participation in school or denying them the benefits of which other students in school have access to. Explain as well as you can what you would like the school to do to stop this discrimination or to remedy the harm that the discrimination has done to your child. And this is a very important step. And I'd like you to keep this in mind, because if there ever is an investigation, like a civil rights investigation of this particular situation, they will ask what remedy you are seeking. What do you want to have happen? And state that if a person receiving this letter does not investigate and does not take effective corrective action, that you may claim that the district showed deliberate indifference to this discrimination. And then, of course, you have a right to continue to file for discriminatory practices and maybe a denial of the free, appropriate public education. Another thing to remember, and that I state over and over and over again, is that parents are the people who are most familiar with their child's strengths and their abilities, and also their vulnerabilities. Parents are the child's best advocate. They are the persons most familiar with the child's strengths and weaknesses. Parents can be the most important factor in determining an effective plan for intervention. Parents, children, and adults in the school should work together to prevent and intervene against bullying so that the child knows all of his or her options and understands how to respond. They should have an action plan. And we talked about all those things that you could do. You can even sit with your child and develop their own action plan about what would happen if they became bullied. After participating in a specific curriculum, you have information on some informal strategies, and what beside the informal strategies, what are some of the formal strategies that you might want to use? Again, the most important factor is that parents have a variety of options to assist them in deciding and carrying out what they think are appropriate interventions for their children. So I've provided to you several different handouts. And for the next couple of minutes, what I'd like to do is to address the fact that there are multiple programs that are out there on anti-bullying programs. There are certain things like stopbullying.gov that you might want to take a look at. One called Bully Free program, another one called Kids Against Bullying program. There's one on cyberbullying, a prevention curriculum for grades 6 through 12 that Hazelton has done. There's one called Bullying, Ignorance is No Defense, and that's from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. Let's Be Friends, which is an early childhood bullying prevention program for pre-K through 8. There's one called Stand Up, Speak Out for middle school. There's also one called Bully Free, which is a school-wide program. And many, many programs exist. There was one a long, long time ago, this really dates me, that from Peter, Paul, and Mary fame, Peter Yarrow put together, which was called Don't Laugh at Me, which was a video and songs that went along with it. So no matter what age group your child falls into, there are multiple programs that are able to, that you're able to take a look at and to utilize for your child's best advantage. So this basically ends our webinar for today. I'm going to check and see if we have any questions at this time. I don't see any, but please feel free, if you do have specific questions, to contact me directly. Again, this is Bonnie Vandermeulen. I'm the training coordinator for Wisconsin Facets. My email address is, and I'll say it slowly for you, B VANDERMEULEN@wifacets.org. I'd like to thank everybody for joining us today. This concludes our webinar. Wisconsin Facets has over 100 scheduled webinars and trainings for the year 2021. We have just posted our first few months of the year's webinars. Please check the website calendar and register for any of the upcoming trainings that may be of interest to you. And please watch for the short evaluation that's coming to you after today's live webinar. Thank you for your attendance today. Have a great day. Stay well and be safe. Bye, everybody.